Hey everyone, today I want to do an amazing video on a very, very amazing person. His name's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know you've heard of him. And this is a man who had a very interesting life. And most people don't know about it. I think 99% of people don't know about it other than what he's done on screen as an actor. He's done so much more than an actor. And again, I'm not just talking about him as a governor. He's done a lot of interesting stuff. So I'm just going to distill it down into the basics for the sake of brevity of this video. But here are the big things that I think you should know about Arnold Schwarzenegger. First thing is that he had already made it big in real estate. Now this wasn't instantaneous. He worked over numerous years to achieve this. But he made it big in real estate before his acting career really took off. Now he was already acting when he was doing real estate, but the key distinction that he did that none of the other actors did, and none of the other people did during his time acting, was that he chose not to rely on his acting as a source of income, because he knew that all these actors were begging and just trying to scrabble and get any part that they could. And the same thing with all the bodybuilders that he saw at the gym, because at the time that he lived, there's not a lot of money in bodybuilding. Not a lot at all. It's not like today. And therefore, when he saw this and he realized this, he knew that he couldn't rely on it. And for me, that's just absolutely amazing, because you see all these stories of people who supposedly made it big off of some risk, where they just risked it all, and if it didn't work out, they would have been homeless, or as most actors or aspiring actresses are, they're waitresses when they're not acting. And I think that's from my personal perspective. It may be true occasionally, but it shows that not everyone's like this. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger. People are smart, and it's so interesting the more I read how people aren't as they seem. And it's just a very practical, rational thing for him to do. And so he made a very good, calculated decision. Like if his acting career didn't take off, he had a lot of money in real estate. And by the time he had gotten into acting and he was looking to get more roles, even if he failed, he was a millionaire already in real estate investing. And it was a great time to get into it, because it was a time where you can make a lot of money, 300% returns from an initial down payment on real estate, which can't be done anymore according to him and his knowledge on real estate. The second amazing thing about him is that he entered the acting career, the acting industry, in a time where no one wanted him. He got turned down numerous times. And a lot of people don't have that tenacity. They couldn't take it. But because Arnold Schwarzenegger did not give up, he never gave up, and all these people told him all these horrible things and rejected him when he tried to be an actor, he did not accept it and just give up. He kept going on and on and on, and it really just propelled him. And it's so amazing how many things were stacked against him when he was trying to become an actor. At the time, all the prominent actors and big Hollywood stars were people like Woody Allen, and these individuals that were very skinny, kind of not muscular at all, and blonde. And that was what Hollywood wanted at the time, and that was the stereotype of the Hollywood star. And each time he tried to get a role, they would tell him, sorry, you're a freak of nature. Because before he went into acting, and real estate, he was a Mr. Olympia champion like 7 times over, and he was this monstrous muscular bodybuilder, and he had this enormous accent. And what I found so amazing about him is he took these weaknesses and he embraced them, and he made them what made him unique. And these things that these people told him, that they said that made him a freak and that made him someone that no one would want. These were producers and directors telling him, no one wants this type of body type. You're weird. You have a very long, bizarre last name. No one can pronounce it. People want quick, easy to remember last names. And then you're a foreigner and you have this horrible accent. These were big things that they kept bringing up and up. And you have this horrible body type, and this is not what the standard of what Hollywood wants, and all these things. And he didn't give up. And like, to me, that's just amazing, because not a lot of people could have put up with all these things. And logically, on some level, they would have thought to themselves, well, it makes sense. It's not what Hollywood wants right now. And I mean, for any aspiring Hollywood actors or whatever you want to call it, entertainment industry aspirationers, that's a great lesson, because it shows how Hollywood can change. The culture at the time was stacked completely against Schwarzenegger. And now, it's changed, the culture's changed again, but when he finally rose to prominence and made hundreds of millions in acting, this was a man who established a new Hollywood actor sort of body type and figure. This muscular man was now in. And it's just so amazing. Like, if, the culture can be changed. If it doesn't fit you, it's okay. And from my studies and from what I've heard him say, it doesn't seem like Schwarzenegger really thought, hey, maybe I can change the culture, maybe I can accept the things that people say are my weaknesses or that won't work, and make them what makes me unique, and embrace them, and then create roles from those things. It more so seemed that he just didn't give up, and then slowly over time he just kept trying new things, and finally over time he didn't give up, and eventually with a lot of practice and work he slowly started getting roles and movies and then films, and then he hit his big one, which was Conan the Barbarian, made a lot of money off of that, millions of dollars. And slowly he started realizing, hey, the things that made these movies hits are the things that were called my weaknesses, or the reasons that people didn't want me initially. The things like his huge muscular body, which made Conan the Barbarian like the thing it is. And it's interesting because the person who helped him get that role remarked later on that, heck, if we didn't find Arnold, we would have had to create an Arnold, because we needed this muscular body type, and that made the main character. If he was skimp or gimpy or not that muscular, it wouldn't have worked. And then again, all these things that seemed like obstacles or things that made this man not applicable for this film industry turned out to be the things that made him either the star he was, or turned out to be not an obstacle at all. For instance, his last name, this horrible long last name, or his accent, or the fact that he was a foreigner and didn't speak good English. And these things turn out to be not a big problem. Like, nowadays, it's very clear that it doesn't matter how bizarre or weird your last name or first name is. It can work. It doesn't matter if you're a good actor and it's a great role and it's a good film. Who cares if your last name is 50 characters long? Maybe that can serve as a unique thing that will make people chat and talk about you even more. So it's kind of like, I think it's a lesson on life, and whatever sort of industry or field or level of skill set or practice you're studying in, certain long-held beliefs like, you're this type of person, or you're this ethnicity, or you're a foreigner, or you can't speak this, or the length of your name. Sometimes you kind of just have to not give up and maybe believe that, hey, these aren't actually real obstacles. And, lo and behold, you'll be very surprised. And, you know, for me, I think this is something that's definitely applicable to my own limiting beliefs in the dating industry and my ethnicity and stuff like that. And those are things I have to work through, take less seriously and accept and embrace. But moving on, though, I want to conclude with a final thing. James Cameron, the man who created the two highest grossing films of all time, Titanic and Avatar, and all the successes in his life, including the Terminator series. This was a very interesting man himself. I don't want to go on a tangent. Like, this was a man who, at one point, he didn't have much money. Now he's like so rich, and he was just trying to write scripts, and he just wanted to direct it and stuff, and he was broke. But he mentioned something on Schwarzenegger after the Terminator was made. He mentioned how the accent that Arnold had made the character, because if he did not have the exact accent, the German accent that he had, it wouldn't have made the robot that Arnold was playing sound as mechanical as a robot should, and it wouldn't have become as believable. The specific way that Arnold says certain words with his accent makes him who he is, and therefore creates this level of mechanical robotness that others couldn't create, even if they said the same words, "I'll be back," rather than how Arnold says it, "I'll be back." And it's all just very interesting, and it really just makes me ponder and think about the universe, and as far as I guess not really the universe, but like natural selection on the earth, really, and how it sort of just works. And it's just very interesting how we are so varied and different as humans go, and oftentimes all our variations are sort of put forth to see what will work best with the environment and help us or hurt us. And one thing I really have to think about and just ponder and marvel at is the fact that oftentimes, what makes you unique or you think are weaknesses or things that you're embarrassed about, or you think because of those differences you are not as great as those popular people or those people in your school or your class or society, they can become your strengths if you use them properly and embrace them. And I think that's a very interesting thing. It's really interesting to think about. Winston Churchill, I believe it was him, or maybe it was someone else. One of those individuals, he told Ariana Huffington, who has a very deep accent, not to lose her accent, because oftentimes very famous, successful people who are known throughout history or remembered through history, they're remembered by things that made them unique, like their accent. And oftentimes you can fall into traps or beliefs like, oh, I can't speak proper English, I have this weird, clunky, bad accent, I'm embarrassed about it. Well, oftentimes, when you die and your legacy is known, people remember you by your accent. I know people remember Arnold Schwarzenegger by his accent after he's gone. It's a very interesting thing to think about. And again, it doesn't always work. Not all your weaknesses can help you. But I do think that society and culture, and media sort of pushes you because, they want to make money. So they push certain products or the ideal way to look or act, so that they sort of slightly brainwash you, maybe more than slightly, and make you want to buy products to make you seem more like that sort of person. So they make a lot more money, and then money, you know, people think is the route to happiness, which not really. And so, long story short, we get these weird misconceptions about what is the ideal beauty. And there's so many examples I see when I look at it globally and from a scientific perspective, how, you know, these flaws or these differences that you put on yourself that you think are embarrassments or things that you think are not ideal to society aren't actually really that bad. For instance, if you look at different cultures and nations, from Asian, let's just go Eastern versus Western, there's so many things that it's just by the quirks or differences and idiosyncratic differences in this culture versus another one, it makes this culture, let's say the Asian culture, the Eastern culture, thinks stuff like, for instance, tanning makes you less attractive. Versus the Western culture, for whatever reason, has now grown to think that if you're tanned, you look more attractive. And that's like a great example. It's a very clear distinction. If you go to China or anywhere else, any other Asian country, they will very clearly say that the general consensus is that the less dark you are, the more attractive you are. And the reasons behind that, in my opinion, go to differences in perceived appearances of high status individuals with a lot of money. Because those in Eastern cultures who have very pale skin usually aren't out in the sun all day, and being out in the sun all day is attributed to labor and low class work, versus the people who are in at home all day, who have, I guess you can say, no sunlight because they're doing something more advanced that makes more money. Versus in the Western culture, and again, this is just pure speculation, it's partially due to the fact that our perceptions of value and who's rich have changed, and that's not the only thing. And attractiveness is, it doesn't really. It's a more emphasis on like people who are very attractive and what Hollywood thinks, and then there's that whole Jersey Shore thing. But before that, I mean, the people in Jersey Shore already thought tan was attractive. So where did that come from? I don't know. I guess it's just, if you're too pale or I guess white. I guess again, it's just speculation. It attributes more. People attribute it more to the gamer who doesn't make a lot of money and just like games all day on a computer, rather than someone successful. Anyhow, though, I think it's also very interesting because if you look at science and natural selection, all sorts of weird things that people think, they shy away from and they're embarrassed about, like, for instance, webbed feet or webbed fingers. People are embarrassed about stuff like that, and they think it's weird, and they think people won't find it attractive, and it's partially true. But where does that all come from? Well, first off, webbed fingers and webbed feet are one of those variations that have to be constantly. Again, there's a bell curve that constantly have to be thrown out, and small percentages of people will have these weird things, and it's one of those things that I think makes what I think a lot of people attribute illnesses to, which aren't really illnesses, like ADD, for instance, but really just variations that may benefit or help individuals depending on the environment that these species or individuals have put forth. So, for instance, I think I got a little unclear there, but to make it more clear, webbed feet or webbed fingers have been put forth on some individuals because that sort of variation allows for naturally more variation over the years, and it allows certain species to evolve. And fingers, slowly, if you can sort of see the progression, can evolve into fins or just webbed hands completely. And that's very beneficial in a aquatic environment. And so these sort of things are just put forth to test the environment, figure out, what works best, what works worst. And really that variation is necessary to allow species to have a wide adaptability and highest chance of survival given the wide changes in the potential environment. And then the beauty of natural selection is it allows it to work very well, and slowly those things will progress into greater and greater levels of these features, which I think is very interesting because it allowed a lot of species to survive and reproduce, and those things were favored. And currently in our culture, it's this weird thing where it's not favored because it's just weird and it doesn't help in any way. So yeah, hopefully I didn't ramble too much. And as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.